Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. Patch 9.2 Eternity's End has finally been announced. And while we don't have any kind of release dates anytime soon, we did get a swath of new information about this brand new update. Like the brand new zone, as well as the brand new denizens of that zone, new creature models, new mounts, new transmog sets in terms of tier sets that are class specific. And it sounds like they have their own class specific bonuses. While this update didn't really go into the details of some of the different changes to systems, they mentioned there's going to be changes to classes, soulbinds, conduits and such, but that'll probably be tested in the future PTR updates. In this video, I just want to cover everything that was talked about in this announcement. Right before that, most of you guys watching these videos aren't subscribed, and if you're watching these videos and are interested in more 9.2 updates, which we'll definitely cover in this channel, subscribe, hit the bell for any future content updates. At the beginning of the video, Blizzard started with, this is the final chapter of Shadowlands. This is the final chapter of the book of this expansion. So this is confirmed that 9.2 is going to be the last patch of Shadowlands. There's a potential for maybe 9.2.5 to maybe add more quality of life stuff or some kind of like a leveling boost for, anticipation of the next expansion. But I won't be surprised if we got some sort of a future expansion announcement shortly after the launch of patch 9.2 or shortly after like the Mythic raid has been unlocked. The new zone of Zereth Mortis is the place we'll be venturing to next. We don't really know how big the zone is from the trailer, but it does look like there's a couple of different biomes. There's a full natural biome full of green and water that we are supposed to be able to walk on, but there's also a deserty area, and maybe there's going to be other parts of Zereth Mortis that we haven't seen, but it looks like it has a bit of variety. The creatures have this mix of like they're living beings, but also have like mechanical floaty bits about them. So they're kind of like between machines and like a real animal. The whole place is crawling with automa, which are like the sentries left by the first ones to continue designing different afterlives for different worlds, which I think sets up possibility of us going to other worlds in the future, not just Azeroth and Shadowlands, but maybe worlds beyond our imagination. Also got a new faction of the brokers called the Enlightened, where normally brokers are about making deals and money. These guys are more about chasing that knowledge. This is going to dive in about more of the story of the brokers. I always found them fascinating as like an extra creature in World of Warcraft universe, but also it's going to give us a new player hub called Haven, a variety of different vendors to interact with, most like mounts to earn, pets to collect, cosmetics to get, and I'm pretty sure these guys are going to be pretty integral to the story as well. Speaking about the story, the way that Blizzard is doing it this time is a little different than before. We don't really know exactly how this will function, but the idea is we're supposed to be able to decode the cipher of the first ones. We're going to need to do that because the denizens of Zereth Mortis don't actually speak our language, and we have to literally learn their language in order to be able to interact with them. So certain mobs that you might need reputation items for or certain crafting materials, you literally won't have any dialogue options until you unlock more of their language. From the sound of things, this will either be like a weekly cap of like a story thing where you get to unlock more of their language, or just something tied to exploration, as they mentioned in the video, that you'll have to explore the zones and uncover what these sigils mean and then piece the puzzles together to understand the denizens, the automons, a little bit better inside of Zereth Mortis. This is a very interesting way of going about it. I wonder how this will work because they wanted to make the story and the zone very alien to you, and I guess this definitely would be a way to do it, to make sure that we don't know what the hell anyone is saying until we learn their language, since it's all new and different for us. Now for some endgame content, of course a brand new raid is available, Sepulcher of the First Ones, where we'll obviously be fighting a lot of the jailer forces, but also we'll be fighting some of the creatures corrupted by the jailer. It looks like there's an Algalon fight, but it's like a corrupted Algalon corrupted by the jailer's influence. And apparently we'll be fighting Anduin as well to find out how to deal with the domination magic that Zoval possesses. So it looks really cool. The raid environment looks amazing. In the video they talked about how Sepulcher can rewrite reality itself. So when Sepulcher can rewrite reality, I think you might be able to take reality, concepts of physics, everything that makes sense, throw it out of the window and have a lot more creativity with some of the different mechanics and boss fights. This gets me really excited because there's a lot of ways that they could go in some of these boss fights, how cool and creative they can be, because nothing used to make sense. It can have a little bit of the surrealism to it. Did I mention corrupted Algalon? Because that looks really exciting. Wrath of Lich King boss kind of reimagined in Shadowlands. This place looks Absolutely fantastic. Cannot wait to dive into this whenever it's available on PTR and try some of these bosses. Then we have a big one, class tier sets return. I'm so excited for the tier sets because not only do they have a different look, different visuals, depending whether you're a monk, rogue, or demon hunter. All of you wear leather, but all of you look visually different. Warlocks, mages, warriors, paladins, death knights, hunters, druids, shamans, everybody gets a unique set. The way they described in the video, they wanted for each set to represent the different silhouettes that's recognizable for each class. The monk with this karate kind of sash along its waist, the skulls for death knights, wolf hat for shaman, the rogue with the mask, the warrior with a bulky set, the spiky demon hunters, the cowled warlocks. All of it looks amazing. Don't get me wrong, Battle for Azeroth and Shadowlands had mostly like leather sets, plate set. Most of them look great and they're probably way easier to make than one for each class, but just seeing the class diversity, variety of how all of them represent themselves from tier to tier, there's just nothing that beats that kind of visual fidelity from class to class. Even more important than the visual fidelity is it sounds like the class tier sets are going to have bonuses to them. Like the original sets, we'll have a powerful 2-piece and a 4-piece set bonus. To add on, I want to read this quote. Harness the power of the first ones by collecting distinctive class armor sets via raids, PvP, or Mythic Plus dungeons, which sounds like they're going to have a tier set for all 3 end games of content. They mention each set comes with a powerful 2-piece and a 4-piece to complement your unique abilities. And they mention unique abilities, they're not saying covenant abilities, which is also another good thing. We don't really know exactly what they mean by this. Either they mean that PvP set will have its own tier sets, like a rogue set will be focused on maybe crowd control and survivability, like your tier set bonuses will enhance those options. The raid set maybe will focus on your single target damage output, while the Mythic Plus set will maybe focus on AoE damage and be able to do damage through multiple enemies, while being able to, let's say, talent for certain talents. Or is it just one set that you can get through 3 different content, like a set that will enhance, let's say, my slice and dice damage that can be earned from dungeons, raids, and PvP, and then a 4-piece bonus that, let's say, enhances my finisher damage that can also be earned from Mythic Plus, raids, or PvP. Like the same set from all kinds of, like, you know what I mean? Like the powers themselves, the bonuses themselves, what the actual tier traits will be like, we don't really know yet, and I cannot wait to test it out on PTR. But I think a lot of players will agree that this is a good direction for the game, to head back into the direction of having unique sets and unique bonuses that augment those class abilities. What's also important to see is, in that quote, they said class abilities, not covenant abilities, because after this expansion we lose the covenants. To go back to augmenting how our classes play rather than how certain borrowed powers play, this is good. This tells me that they understand the direction the game is going to be going into. And if tier sets are to come back as a permanent feature for future raids of the next expansion, then at least they have it set together on, yes, we know, we understand exactly what's important, and we will give you exactly what you want, which is tier sets and unique bonuses. Some of the other things that brushed over, but we will talk a bit more detail, is M+ and PvP Season 3 is going to be available with Eternity's End patch 9.2, which is expected. As for some of that content, again, they didn't really dive into detail, so there's just like a footnote at the end. We'll get to test that stuff out as we get into PTR, but Tezavesh has been added as a mythic keystone dungeon inside of the rotation. Just like the other mega dungeons from previous expansions, it'll be split into 2, like a first part and a last part. I think Tezavesh is a fantastic dungeon. We got to play it a ton with 9.1, but there's not a lot of replayability since, you know, it just has a limited amount of gear and limited things to do. But the first part gives you so much flexibility in how you can run the dungeon, because after the first boss, you can go to any boss afterwards. The second bosses actually look quite challenging, so I'm interested to see what some of the tuning, if they can make those dungeons usable and workable, and maybe even easier to do. A lot of players love when the dungeon is more or less easy for the Mythic Plus weeks. They also have brand new mounts and pets. Again, collectibles, who doesn't love those? But some of the mount ideas they have is they got a snail mount. I think this is the first time we had a snail mount in the game ever. Then there's birds, there's flying spiders, and I'm sure there's going to be a variety of different things for us to collect from some of the different new factions of the zone. And for pets in particular, hunter pets, I think hunters are going to be in paradise because there's so many different variety of beasts in Zereth Mortis. Hopefully a lot of them are tameable, because some of the different looks that they have, I think a lot of those pets are going to be able to complement your armor sets. They also mentioned there's going to be significant updates to professions, soul binds, conduits, and other features. I don't expect for them to do anything amazing or crazy with professions just yet. I think if anything, a lot of the big updates to professions and crazy revamps could be planned for the next expansion at this point, but we're most likely going to see legendary recipe upgrades and maybe even crafted gear. If they could find a way for you to be able to make a bunch of crafted gear for our alts to start up at a higher level just to get into Zereth Mortis faster, that'll be my one request. Then there's conduits as well as soulbinds. Soulbinds, I feel like as a system in Shadowlands, is a fairly okay system. It works pretty well. It doesn't need to be reinvented every single patch. Like in Battle for Azeroth, they had to keep adding more systems on top of systems just because the current systems didn't really work by themselves. In Shadowlands, soulbinds, conduits, all the stuff works fine. I think if anything, updating soulbinds so there's a bit more equality between covenants, so they're a little bit closer, would be an important thing. But conduits, if they can make it easier to acquire them, that'll be my only big wish. They also mentioned they're adding a dancing minigame at Darkwind Fair. It sounds like it's DDR in terms of like you actually be able to dance against the other person in Dance Revolution style. This isn't quite Wrath of Lich King promised dance studio, but I think this is close enough to a dance studio that we're ever gonna get. We'll see, maybe we'll have it at some point in the future. But for now, this is where we're gonna end it. This is everything we know so far about Eternity's End patch 9.2. And we'll probably know a lot more as Blizzard releases more information, as they answer questions on the forums, and as it hits PTR, where we will be able to finally test some of this stuff, test the changes, try all the different class things. The tier sets is the one I'm really excited for, because I think that's fundamentally going to be a pretty big change. Unless they're like some really passive tier sets, I think they could be pretty influential with some of the different builds that we'll play and how our classes will be adjusted. I'm hoping they just go wild with them. Like you don't really need to make the craziest tier sets with massive gameplay changes, just allowing players to have different builds and a reason to try certain talents because it synergizes with tier sets. I think that would be good enough to make me happy. And it sounds like they're making a tier set for M+ PvP and raiding, so we'll see how that goes. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed this update. And again, as I said earlier, subscribe, follow the channel, hit the bell if you want to catch up any future 9.2 updates at all. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. I'll see all of you in the next one.